I'm going to go over the personal account of neuroweapon abuse on a higher level. I wanted to touch on, what's caused me the situations I believe, and some of the things that I've learned along the way of being affected by neuroweapons, by V2K, remote neural monitoring. So let's go ahead and jump straight in. I'll introduce myself first. My name's Ken Stroud. Worked in IT for years. Right now, I currently work for Tabit Technologies. I do IT for restaurants and bars. I worked for the state paper for a long time doing the conversion from print to digital. I worked for Dillard's Corp doing IT for them, and I was in telecommunications between Alltel and Verizon and AT&I for around 15 years. Um, so I went to college, Pulaski Technical College, got my A plus certification, Network plus certification, also spent some time at UALR. I've been targeted for around 6 to 7 years with the attack of neuroweapons. Um, I can no longer use cellular, Bluetooth devices that are connected to Wi-Fi or cellular because it causes high levels of radio frequency to hit me. I don't know exactly what causes it, but it's a problem I experience right now. I'm running through a wired connection as I speak to you all. I am a two times suicide survivor. I like to actually say that my suicides were more of an artificial suicide because I would have never attempted anything of the sort if I was not verbally persuaded through the V2K attacks and the neural pain attacks that I suffered daily. I'm diagnosed by Dr. Lydia Shajenko from New Jersey, and I'm also part of Lindbergh's civilian database for Havana syndrome. And I spent a large part of my time trying to educate people on the problems and mitigation tactics and doctors to visit, people that can help them through social media. I've even wrote a lot of music that I've posted on social media. If you go to LinkedIn and you look at my posts, you'll notice that I've got articles that explain songs, and then you can listen to the actual song at the bottom. So I've spent a lot of time trying to fight these type of problems. But enough about me on that topic. Let's go on to the next slide. Okay, just I'm not a doctor, so I'm just a regular IT guy that is hit by technology, criminal attacks. So I'm going to do my best here and giving you guys, um, what is the cause of Havana syndrome, non-kinetic health incidents, NKBI, in other words, anomalous health incidents. Um, but just the basics, Google will give you that Havana syndrome refers to a mysterious set of health issues, including neurological and sensory symptoms that have affected U.S. diplomats and other government personnel, initially in Cuba and in other locations. Now, as we've moved forward in time, there's begun to being more personnel, or actually more groups that are affected. The civilians are now starting to be affected by these type of attacks as well. Uh, Radiation pretty much is going to be a large part of the cause because these neurological attacks come from wireless sources such as radio frequency that attack your brain and your nervous system, and they all carry radiation. So I think there is a correlation between all of that. Um, so now I've noticed that some people, like the people that came from Havana, they were hit with one huge hard strike, from what I understand, that caused them Havana syndrome immediately. But and a lot of the civilian individuals that I've spoke with, just from my experience, they, including myself, have gone through a more of a slow, grueling process. Um, of being affected. So, like I said, I've been affected by this stuff for 6 or 7 years. Um, I suffer from V2K. So, per Dr. Hoffer, V2K is not part of Havana syndrome, but from the people that I've spoke with, um, most of them, or a percentage of them, also have voice to skull technology. And what that is, for you guys that don't know what that is pretty much voices. Um, Voices that can either be caused from some type of artificial intelligence or could even be caused from an operator of some sort that's connected to the body. Imagine being on a cell phone call and not being able to ever hang up. That's pretty much what V2K is like. Um, all right, so just some of the basic terms: remote neural monitoring. Um, it's actually where people can see through your eyes, hear through your ears. A lot of times, people that have Havana syndrome are affected by this on the civilian level have some sort of remote neural monitoring going on in their body. The voice to skull technology I went over with you. Directed energy weapons a lot of times play a role with the civilian population as well, being that a lot of people are getting hit with high levels of radio frequency when they drive around town through their actual networked equipment. So where these are coming from, it may be coming from directionals, it may be coming from drones. I don't have all the answers, but I just wanted to throw out their possibilities. All right, so on to the next slide here. Um, Emotional and physical components of neuroweapon abuse. This is some of my opinions and some of the other individuals that are affected by these type of attacks as well. Um, Confusion is one. It puts you into almost an ADHD like state because it's like listening when you're trying to listen to someone else and you've got constant V2K chatter going off in your head. Um, it literally is like listening to two people. And sometimes the V2K levels of the volume can be lower and sometimes it can be higher. So sometimes it's more difficult. What I've learned is by staying out of higher levels of radio frequency, the volume levels seem to be lowered. That's one reason why I only use wires to my equipment. Depression, whenever this first started for me, um, after a few months, I felt it was never going to end. I started to feel lost. I didn't know what I was going to do. It was just a terrible one. I wanted to run from myself. Um, so a loss of reputation, people doubt your sanity. Some people lose their job. I actually gained a job. I worked really, really hard. Learned how to pay attention to two or three things at a time, and I started working with a new company, and I've been there for a few years now, so I've done really well. As I'd mentioned, some electronics may be hacked. Some individuals have talked about just basic hacking of computers, but then there's the other perspective of raised levels of radio frequency that pump through devices that are connected to Wi-Fi or cellular. Um, Also, I've seen additional power that's being used from equipment that caused raised levels of volts per meter, and I'll get into that more here in a moment. Um, so, um, loss of property. Or life due to suicide is very common for people that are affected by these type of technologies. Um, some have called the form of suicide artificial suicide, as I had mentioned. I think the term fits because these people, including myself, would have never attempted anything like this without some type of convincing through V2K and the suffering that you experience from the pain attacks. So it's people are doing things that are outside of the norm of what would be that individual. Um, so that's the basics on that. Let me get to the next part here. So subliminals actually, I wanted to touch on that. Subliminals are like V2K, but a subliminal attack um, you don't hear anyone speaking to you. V2K is like the reverberation of um, of the technology on your bones of your ears. It allows you to hear actual voices. Like I said, these voices may come from AI, they may come from individuals. I don't think it's been completely proven exactly where these voices are coming from, but they are not schizophrenic events for people that have Havana syndrome. They are truly being sent to the body one way or the other. Um, some other physical symptoms that are experienced, like I said, no silence for 6 or 7 years for me because of the constant V2K chatter. Um, Pain attacks. So, and it's varied. I can't tell you exactly what part of my body's going to hurt each day. I've had levels of intensity from low levels, where it's just a nagging pain, all the way to making me scream. I've had attacks in my eyes that have made me not be able to open them. I've had attacks to my legs that make me not be able to walk. I've had feelings that felt like I was shot in my stomach. I burned myself a little tiny burn one time, and that burn actually caused me to cringe in the floor and scream for 30 minutes. And it was a tiny, tiny burn. But one way or another, they were able to crank up my nervous system amplitude to where it was just terrible. Um, so I've had experiences of rape. I don't want to go into much of the details of that, but it caused me physical problems. Sleep deprivation. Uh, so the physical damage to the brain. There's a film that builds over the brain from having V2K connections for extended periods. So there is actual physical damage that starts to build over time. Um, So also keep in mind that when you get in high levels of radio frequency or volts per meter, these all carry radiation that can also cause physical damage to the body over time, such as cancer, Parkinson's. There's numerous other types of conditions that can be caused from being in high levels of radio frequency. Um, One of the common circumstances that happen to people that have Havana syndrome, um, or alcohol and substance abuse. Now, I do not take any illegal drugs at all. I only use my prescriptions. Um, I may drink a little more than I should, but I don't drink a terrible amount. I have a few beers a day, but it helps me cope along with the medications that I take. But I'm currently attempting to slow down on even the alcohol. Um, but that's just my personal situation. All right, so the next slide here, I wanted to go over with you all the EMF disturbances in relation to neurotech abuse and targeting. Um, how to read an analyzer. EMF analyzing, it's very important for people that have Havana syndrome to know exactly what type of environment they're in. So, what is EMF? The basic word is electromagnetic frequencies, but a field of force that consists of both electric and magnetic components, resulting in the motion of an electric charge and containing and defining the amount of electromagnetic energy. So it's pretty much what allows your cell phone calls to be able to take place. Radio frequencies are a form of electromagnetic frequency. Um, so these are used in the attacks for many people that are affected by, I would say all of the people that are affected by Havana syndrome have been hit by some type of radio frequency attack at some point, is my assumption. Data pumps through networked equipment is something that I've noticed. As mentioned, I will only use wires now. Now, with using a device such as this, or excuse me, any type of networked equipment like my Mac, my cell phone, any device that connects to a network, um, you're going to see on the reader on the reader you'll see the milliwatts per square meter, which is MW/M2. So that is your reading for radio frequencies. Now, a basic phone call, basic cell phone call, you're going to see, I mean, you might see tens and twenties, but in my perspective, sometimes when I've been driving down the road, I've been seeing levels up in the thousands, 4,830 milliwatts per square meter. I would see on my attacks. This would either come through the networked equipment on my truck, it would come through my iPhone, it would come through my Mac, my router of my home. So I started trying to find ways to block all these kind of things. Now I'll get into more of that here in just a moment. Even some appliances, they push the milligauss levels up in your home, which also carry radiation. Um, so just some things to think about. Electrical attacks. So the electrical in your home can be raised, and the electrical that you see in the air is known as volts per meter, measured as VM on most EMF readers. And you have to watch out for that because I've seen spikes as well of volts per meter in my life. I don't understand the reasoning for why they're using every single type of this. But these are the things that I have been seeing personally um, on nearly a daily basis. I hardly drive anywhere anymore. I can't, it doesn't matter if it's in my truck or if I'm in another person's vehicle. Um, I'm seeing elevated levels, such as the one that you see on this slide um, for RF. So I can't hardly get out. If I do, I wear silver clothing. There's lines that are made by Lambs, Haven, that help shield the body. And I think it's very important for those of us that are going through these type of circumstances to wear shielding to make sure that if we do have any type of radio frequency attacks to our body, such as directed energy weapon or even the V2K that comes to your body. I believe that it's slowed down by wearing such as a silver hat that's lined with silver, shirts that are lined with silver. These kind of things can help with slowing the progression of the sickness. All right. So, what forensic and medical data, covert technology, torture. So, I wanted to mention one name. I try not to mention too many, but Amy Hollins played a large role with helping a lot of people out on the forensic side. So, as the forensic community, you guys might want to know her name. She uses processes called subliminal acoustic fingerprinting staff. She uses IR imaging. She's good at using a software called Audacity, and Audacity is an audio-based software that can pick up frequencies. I'll talk more on that. I can touch on the Audacity software. I'm not going to touch on her whole process, but I'll touch on Audacity a little bit here in just a moment. EMF readers, as mentioned, very important. You need to make sure you understand how to read one at a base level. If you're working with individuals that you're trying to solve crimes of people that are being attacked by these type of, by Havana syndrome causing attacks, such as high levels of radio frequency. So what you want to look at is the milliwatts per square meter for radio frequency. Your radio frequencies are what come from your cell phone, from your Wi-Fi routers, or anything connected to your Wi-Fi routers. So that's what you would look at on the meter is the milliwatts per square meter. Volts per meter are what you're going to see from the electrical current of your home. These can also be elevated. And the milligauss, a lot of times you're going to see more from appliances in your home. So I've seen raised elevated levels of all of these since I've developed Havana syndrome. Um, I want to keep your eye on your surroundings. Videos of flashing lights. A lot of times, these units that if they are firing directed energy weapons at you, there'll be a flicker of light that you'll see. And I've had this happen to me while I'm driving. I've actually seen flickers of lights that of people that are following me. My meter will go off on a high level as I'm seeing these light flickers. Um, Another name I wanted to bring up is John Kingston. Kingston has been doing research on individuals to find out if they have implants or any type of semiconductors in their body. So he is a good resource for forensic investigations to find out if there's anything in the body that can be detected from the firing of the actual connections to the body. Um, medical evidence, or more of the testing, and that the evidence can be found from the testing. There's MRIs that are ran, CT scans. This is just from my experience of going through diagnosis. I can't give you every single one of them because, Lord, I've had some more tests than I can count. But I've had a couple MRIs. I have not had a CT scan, but I know people that have had the CT scans. EEGs, I've had the short EEGs. I've had the long EEGs where I've had to wear the stickers on top of my head for a week long. The VNG test, nerve conduction test, vestibular testing, blood tests normally to look for heavy metals in your blood, and a good doctor that I would recommend for going to check to see if you have any type of condition of this sort would be Dr. Lydia Shijenko. She is who diagnosed me with Havana syndrome, as I had mentioned, and she's diagnosed numerous others, I believe. I don't want to speak for her, but I'm pretty sure she has a good base of people that are suffering with these type of conditions. All right, so audio forensics. So we're getting back to Audacity. I wanted to touch on it a little bit. I'm not going to deep dive, but just for people out there that are wanting to kind of understand um, how to read what's happening surrounding a person or in a person's body, the equipment that's being used around a person. You can run a video through Audacity and then import that video into Audacity software. And then you'll go to the Analyze tab, and then you crop the specific portion of the video, and then you'll run a spectrum run through it. It'll actually there's an option to export the frequencies, so that'll be a long spreadsheet that gives you a bunch of numbers in hertz, but those numbers keep the timestamps. Confirm the frequencies and spectrum ranges through the FCC database. You can go to the FCC Advanced Licensing Search, and you can find out who the owners of these broadcasts are. So there's constantly broadcasts in your area. So your cell phone providers are broadcasting. Your devices in your home are broadcasting, saying that, hey, here I am for a Wi-Fi connection. There's broadcasts for amateur radio that are happening. Broadcasts are part of our life. They run through the air. We can't see them, but they're here. They're basically sound. So if you use the audio software Audacity, you can pick these sounds up and it will tell you exactly what these frequencies are. If you want to know who these frequencies are owned by, then you can go into the FCC Advanced Licensing Search and get further details. You can also there's other ways as well. I found a U.S. frequency allocation chart. It's a little outdated, actually quite outdated. It's from 2016, but there's probably more modern versions. When you think of a frequency, you're thinking of one sound. But when you're thinking of a spectrum range, then you're looking at more of a group of sounds. So you can get on and you can look to see who owns the frequencies and who owns the actual spectrum ranges by looking at things such as the U.S. frequency allocation charts and the FCC advanced licensing searches. And so that all collaborates back to what the Audacity software is giving you the ability to actually do, is to pull those sounds from the air. To actually,
Momento.
what's that?
A ver, permítame, porque
Oh,
tengo que hacer aquí.
but okay. But anyways, um, so just some ideas that I'm doing, some testing that I'm doing currently, is if we test with an individual in the room that is affected by the abuse of neurotechnology, and then we pick up the broadcasts that are coming in the room for that individual, and then we have that individual leave completely, and we run the same Audacity tests in that room to find out, if there's any change. Are we still seeing the same providers with the affected individual in the location versus when they are not? These are just some things to think about. I'm looking into it myself. I wanted to mention it out there because it may be a good way for us to get to the bottom of what's happening, what who is actually affecting people through wireless communication that's causing Havana syndrome and the other sicknesses that are going on. I went over frequencies and I went over spectrum ranges. So you understand that a frequency is pretty much one sound, where a spectrum range is a group of sounds. So your cell phone's going to run on certain spectrum range. Your cell phone provider's own blocks of spectrum. So depending on who your cell phone provider is just an example. All right. So mitigation tactics, I went over this quite a bit, but I just want to make sure I hammer it into everyone's brain. Mitigation tactics for high radio frequencies in your home. Do not use cellular or Wi-Fi data unless you have no choice. If you're affected by Havana syndrome or anything of the sort, one way that I've learned how to get away from this is I'm using Zoom for my phone calls. I'm using a wired connection to my computer, and I place most of my phone calls through a wire, and I don't get hit by radio frequency anymore through my equipment. Um, Disable Bluetooth from devices that are using Wi-Fi or cellular because if you take those Bluetooth headphones and you put them in your ears, and this device is running cellular or Wi-Fi, guess what? Those radio frequency levels are going to pump straight into your head. So you might want to run an EMF reader to make sure that you're not seeing high levels of radio frequency whenever you're using these types of equipment. I went over making sure that you use RJ45 cables. Um, Try to find a way of a wired phone connection. Um, I'd also recommend adding an EMF shielding cover over your modem or router because the router itself the router and all the equipment connected to the router can also pump higher levels of radio frequencies. Silver shielding, I mentioned I wear it when I go out. I wear it when I'm sitting in front of my equipment. Monitor your surroundings. Always make sure that you're using an analyzer just to make sure that you're not seeing higher elevated levels. Because I truly believe that the large part of Havana syndrome is having ourselves in these higher levels of radio frequency that's causing further sickness. It's giving the criminals that are using this technology the fuel they need to pump the voice to skull technology into our bodies, to pump the pain attacks that hit our nervous system. I've also included here GQ's EMF radiation levels. So it pretty much just tells you the basic levels of what you would want for volts per meter, for milliwatts per square meter. So radio frequency versus electrical through milligauss. You'll notice it lists all three here, and the basic levels that should be what you should be setting in and what you should not be setting in, and how you should handle it if you get into and the higher levels. So just remember, Havana syndrome caused through technology, from what my experience seems to be. So we need to keep an eye on our wireless communications. We need to keep an eye on how we handle these type of communications. But that's the basics of what I wanted to go over with you guys on my presentation, and it's from my personal accounts, things I've learned. If there's any questions, please feel free to contact me. You can reach out to me through LinkedIn. I'll be happy to give any one of you my contact information if you just reach out.